morning, Brownsville. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on when you're watching this feed. If this is your first time here, welcome. My name is Frank Olivo. Our program focuses on the very important issues that are affecting our local community. We have shed light on injustices and we have allowed for our platform to be that of the voice of the people. If this is something that you can see yourself supporting, we ask that you like, comment, and share this live feed. Now, as of late, our Facebook page is at risk of being taken down. The powers that be do not want you, the voter, constituent, to know the truth. But remember, Brownsville, we will not be silenced. If you're really about the cause and you want to stand up to corruption and you want to hold our elected leaders accountable, we ask that you subscribe to our social media platforms. We can be found on Facebook under Frankie Olivo, and also we could be found under Frankie Olivo TV under YouTube. Remember, Good Morning Brownsville will come on live Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. religiously. So make sure you subscribe to our social media platforms. We will not be silenced. And as always, thank you so much, Brownsville, for the time and attention that you provide to us. We are very, very thankful and humbled for that. Thank you so much for that. How we doing, chat? How we doing? Happy Friday, TGIF. I was debating whether I should come on live. I'm trying to enjoy my summer, but again, I remember about the commitment that I've made that wherever I'm at, no matter what I'm doing, I will come on live. And that is something that is very personal to me because my predecessor before me always made sure that he was always connected with the community. And that is something that I'm trying to do. I have big shoes to fill. We know that in the city of Brownsville, in the Rio Grande Valley, unfortunately, we do not have investigative journalism, somebody that's willing to ask those tough questions. Many people have asked me and said, "Hey, man, you're risking your well-being, you're risking your profession. Why are you doing this?" Well, because it's the right thing to do. We know that in this environment in which we're in, we're going up against the machine, ladies and gentlemen. When we talk about the school district, that's an entity of $600 million, $500 million entity. When we talk about Cameron County, the city of Brownsville, those are machines, and they have all the resources and power given to them, and they have access to law enforcement, and they can arrest us, they can do anything they like. But nonetheless, we feel as if the community needs somebody, and we're not here to, you know, pop up our collar and say, that we are fighting the good fight. No, we just want to be a voice. We genuinely want to be a part of a community that wants things to get done the right way. And for far too long, we have seen corruption in all shapes throughout all entities within our local government. So as long as you let me, Brownsville, I will be here providing you with information. I think that's very important whenever we have the information in front of us. Remember, my job isn't to convince you. My job is just to present you the black and the white. And you, the voter, you, the viewer, will ultimately decide on how you feel on certain subjects. That is what I'm all about. Again, I was contemplating taking a day off, but the circus does not stop for one monkey. Ooh, ooh, ah. Today, ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk about something very interesting that hasn't been talked about as of late. Um, SpaceX. SpaceX, as we know, has put monies in the coffers, has pretty much controlled our politicians. And if we go back to 2014, the MOU that was agreed upon with Cameron County and SpaceX, never in our wildest dreams did we ever think of the repercussions of them ultimately creating their own city government. Many people have argued and stated, well, Elon Musk got tired of dealing with these politicos and he said, man, it would be easier just if I got rid of these people and started my own group. And what did we see? We saw how Starbase has incorporated itself into its own city government. Now, government leaders representing Starbase are SpaceX employees. Who do they answer to? To the almighty daddy, Elon Musk. What we have seen as of late, ladies and gentlemen, is that now, if at first we thought that we lost the beach or we had an idea of losing the beach, now it is a given. Now the Starbase is setting gates, is impeding individuals from having access to certain locations within that area. And if we could remember and if we could talk about the one big issue that we have all been vocal about has been access to our beach. And it's an interesting topic because many people have said, oh, well, how many times have you gone to the beach? And when we think about it, that is our local treasure. When we talk about our avid fishermen on land, when we talk about our fishermen in the boating industry for shrimp and fish, well, they've been affected by everything that's been going on as of late with SpaceX. The interesting thing is that now it seems as if they are restricting access in certain areas. Is that against the law? We would dare say yes, it is. It is against the law. Will our district attorney Luis V. Science be looking into this matter? We hope so, because impeding a road or a highway is considered a misdemeanor according to the Texas Penal Code. Um, so again, did we think at the very beginning that Elon Musk was going to take everything? He was going to take our beaches. He was going to impede us from, restrict us from going there? Never in our wildest dreams. But it's like everything, no? Whenever we get into a relationship, many people always think about economics. Oh, it's great because of XYZ, and we're going to prosper and we're going to benefit from this. Well, as they say, sometimes the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Unfortunately, the city of Brownsville, for far too long, we haven't had an economic boom. We are the least educated. We are one of the poorest areas in all of the nation. So whenever we thought of the world's richest man making Brownsville his home, everybody thought, man, this is a win-win. We were sold on the idea of Boca Chica to Mars. Yeah. In reality, do we really think that we are ever going to go to Mars? I've spoken to people that actually work at SpaceX. And that person laughed at me. He invited me over for breakfast one day, not too long ago, 2 weeks ago, shortly after the blast in which we're going to talk about today. And he told me, Frankie, are you really buying how this notion of Boca Chica to Mars is going to be a reality? And I said, well, Elon Musk is saying that in 20 years, it's going to happen, and space exploration is something that within the 100 years, future generations, it's going to be a reality. And he said, "Hi, Frankie." He said, "Don't you think it's funny that we haven't returned to the moon? Back in the '60s, it kind of just died off. Why is that? Did we ever go to the moon?" Launching a rocket, and again, I am no engineer. I am not well versed in aerospace, aerodynamics engineer. I am not. But from the information that I got from my friend who works at SpaceX, who works at the launch site, he said, "You know how difficult it is to get a rocket that weighs a ton in the air? It's impossible. It's something that unfortunately is not going to happen." And it got me thinking, are we being played? Is this something to where it's just a money grab? Did we, being the poorest areas, were we offered peanuts? Were we sprinkled a few bucks with the understanding that Brownsville was going to be the future? We'd like to think so, but the reality is that that's not true. Now, what's going to happen? And as we all know, technology is changing very, very quickly. When we think about electronics, that TV that you just bought, that TV that you recently just bought at the store, that's already outdated. New technology is coming out very fast. And this could be stated for all electronics when we talk about laptops, cameras, TVs, anything digital, any technological innovations. They're quickly outdated. Why? Because the new wave of industry is creating new products. So technology is advancing at a rapid pace. What is technology going to be like in 100 years? Well, we expect that that's going to be very, very advanced um, in the near future. But when we talk about today, when we talk about reality today, are we being played? Is this something where the world's richest man is just ruining our environment, Rosas? Is this something to where, and you've seen the pictures, we just got word, I believe the Texas Tribune did post, if I'm not mistaken, let me bring up the article. The Texas Tribune did post that SpaceX will now have or will now build a liquid oxygen plant right next to the beach, right next to the rockets, near the South Texas beach. And today I wanted to talk about the explosion that happened. And if you're from the area, you felt the commotion. I was with my grandfather at the time, and it felt as if somebody ran into our gate. It was a furious explosion. At the time, I didn't understand. I didn't know what was going on. I literally thought somebody crashed into my grandfather's house. It was that big of a thud. During that time as well, and I could joke about it now, but not then. This was around the time where the whole Iran thing, that Iran was threatening us, that hey, something's gonna happen to America, get ready. So there was that tension with Iran and other countries. And when that happened, the first thing that came to my mind was, oh God, Iran, it hit us. And you might laugh and joke, but remember what happened on 9/11? 9/11 was something that was very shocking. Um, what happened a few days, a week after 9/11? Well, here locally, Queen Isabella Causeway collapsed. There was a ship that, what's the proper word, barged, crashed, and caused a section of the causeway to fall. And unfortunately, we did have individuals that perished and lost their lives on that tragic day. But what did everybody think? Something happened to the causeway. Terrorists. Um, at least that was my reaction. And I was 14, 15 years old, and I really didn't understand, what was going on. So we've had our fair share of explosions. We've had our fair share of scares here locally. What happened, ladies and gentlemen? What happened from this explosion is very, very scary. And also, when we talk about um, this plant that will create liquid oxygen, is something to be concerned about. Now, Cameron County is giving SpaceX whatever it wants, unfortunately. Have you heard of a county commissioner give Elon Musk some sort of resistance? Has been vocal about anything? Heck, have you heard of a Cameron County commissioner issue a statement, talked about the explosion? I haven't. The only one that has, correct me if I'm wrong, chat, the only one that has was our state senator, Adam Hinojosa, who did bring up the incident and said, you know what, we're working closely with SpaceX. Uh, we need to monitor the situation. But when it comes to Cameron County, I didn't hear anything. Maybe you did. but I didn't hear anything. Um, and you would think that something of this magnitude, because this was a big deal. Individuals in La Feria, San Benito, Los Fresnos, they stated that they felt the power of the explosion. So if you could just imagine, people were frantic. They didn't know what was going on. Are we being under attack? Is this terrorism? What's going on? As you can imagine, there was a lot of confusion on that day, and we posted pictures of how the sky was orange. We're like, what the heck? What the hell? We had never, well, me personally, I've never seen that before. It it shook me because I was thinking, is there reason to panic? Should we be in fear? Ultimately, we got word that there was this explosion, but there was no, they didn't give us a hey, we're gonna do these tests, these static fire, just in case, be prepared. There's no communication. You would think that if something was going to happen, they'd go over all the different possibilities. Because at the end of the day, when you're dealing with fuel, with oxygen, and with neighboring cities, 5 miles, you would think that they would go through all the different options and say, hey, look, this is what we're gonna do, this is what's gonna happen. This is just a test. Be prepared. If something wrong were to happen, we're ready. We didn't get nothing. We had um, no advanced information. Nothing was done. Nothing was told. We were just scared out of our minds. We didn't know what the heck was going on. On that day, ladies and gentlemen, everybody was freaking out. Recently, our city manager for the city of Brownsville, Helen Ramirez, uh, did send a letter to SpaceX representatives. And what is interesting about that, ladies and gentlemen, is we can talk about the lack of communication, but what she stated was very, very true. That catastrophic life, or the real threat to neighboring cities, to first responders, because of the explosion, was something that was real. And she wanted to address the anomaly, quote unquote, because it impacted our Brownsville emergency services, and also it impacted our public safety uh, department. When we think about our call centers, how many people, how many individuals do you think are on the line? Whenever you call for emergency help, let's say we're calling Cameron County, we live out in the rural area. How many dispatchers, how many people with headsets are waiting for your call and are going to relay to um, to the sheriff's department, going to relay to the constables, going to relay to law enforcement officials to help you in your time of duress. When we think about the county, I'd probably say maybe two, three at most that are directing phone calls, possibly more. When we talk about the city of Brownsville, with a population of 200,000, I would guesstimate that there was about four or five that night, possibly not even that much. Why do I say this? Well, if something happens to you, you would think that, uh, let's say you need emergency, it's an emergency, and you need an ambulance, you need to go to the hospital. You're hoping that, depending on where you live, where you're located, that the hospital, that emergency services is going to reach you within 10, 12 minutes. In a perfect world, right? Depending on traffic, depending on who's working that day, the driver. There's so many factors, but you would think that if you had an emergency, You'd want emergency services to be there present to render aid as soon as possible, right? Well, what happened on that night caused chaos. There was a lot of confusion. In the letter, in the email that was sent from city manager Helen Ramirez to SpaceX leadership, she talked about how the city of Brownsville, and I could be mistaken on this. I'm not sure if it's just the city of Brownsville or Cameron County as a whole. I'm going to say city of Brownsville because she has access, quick access to those numbers. So 2 days after the explosion, she sent an email to SpaceX representatives. And in that email, she stated that, again, it is, when we think about their partnership, they have to be courteous because, you know, it's Elon Musk. But she shared what happened. She shared a report of what happened in regards to the city's public safety departments. And during that time, again, if I could paint you a picture, this happened at 11:05 p.m., late at night on June 18th. And at that time, shortly thereafter, many people were frantic. They didn't know what was going on. What do people do whenever they're scared, whenever they're worried about their safety? They call 911. Can you imagine, ladies and gentlemen, that the explosion caused mass hysteria? That there was over 100,000 phone calls on that night. That the Brownsville dispatchers, and I'm quoting straight from the email, between 11 p.m. June 18th and 1 a.m. on June 19th, Brownsville dispatchers received 123,911 calls from citizens reporting explosions, structural shaking, visible flames, and growing skies. Can you imagine that, ladies and gentlemen? The Brownsville dispatchers, their phones were blowing up more than the pizza man. So much that they couldn't keep up. Imagine, again, on a typical night, how many phone calls does the Brownsville dispatch receive? Depending on if it's a weekend, weekday, depending on if it's a holiday. Unfortunately, during holidays, there's a lot of domestic violence, there's a lot of consumption of alcohol, of illicit substances. So you would think that during holidays, they do see an a higher volume of phone calls. But can you imagine them receiving over 100,000 phone calls in the span of 2 hours? That's unheard of. That's something that half of Brownsville, again, Brownsville is a population of 200 plus on paper. Imagine getting half of Brownsville calling the dispatchers 911. Something's going on. There's an explosion. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I'm safe. Maybe there's a real threat outside of my home. Can you please help me? Can you please send EMS? Can you please imagine if somebody suffered from a heart attack? If somebody was going through serious issues? And what they state in that email, ladies and gentlemen, is that there was a triage. And triage is when they pretty much answer the important phone calls, and the least important phone calls they hang up. Everything's okay. All right, bye. So a triage, and people who are nurses, people that work in the medical field, especially during COVID, and I got to learn a little bit about this because we were fortunate enough to have doctors, nurses, nurse practitioners on the show that did give us a little insight into what triage really was. And if you could remember, during COVID, it was a scary time. There wasn't enough manpower. People were flocking to the hospitals. And triage for our medical professionals at that time during COVID meant that they were dealing with the most important pressing issues at the time. If you walked in with a cut on your finger, a broken ankle, a sprained knee, they weren't even attending you. They were putting you at the back of the line. So this was the same thing that happened essentially on the date of that explosion. A triage was being conducted by our dispatchers. And can you blame them? Again, they're getting phone calls galore in a matter of they're getting what's 100 120 divided by 60,000 phone calls in an hour. This was a span of 2 hours. 60,000 phone calls came in an hour. That's crazy. That's unheard of. And I go back to the same thing. Why? Because there was no communication from SpaceX leadership to Cameron County and to City of Brownsville. Why? You would think, ladies and gentlemen, that these people would go over all the different possibilities and scenarios. They have to have options. They have to have a plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D. Why? Because whenever you're dealing with rockets, whenever you're dealing with fire, whenever you're dealing with oxygen, whenever you're dealing with surrounding cities, you would think that these people would be prepared in more ways than one. But what do we see? That's not the case, unfortunately. What bothers me, ladies and gentlemen, is I feel as if now that they created their own city, they're kind of like, deuces, I don't need y'all. I don't answer to y'all. We answer to Papi Musk, not you, City of Brownsville leadership, not you, Cameron County. We listen to Daddy Musk. Is that the case? I hope not. Unfortunately, this was a lesson for everybody. Now, whenever they have testing, they're going to let people know. If they don't, they should. What bothers me is, I'm going back to the same thing. Have you heard from our county commissioners? At the end of the day, Starbase falls under the jurisdiction of Cameron County. I know, and we all are aware that legislators, our senator Adam Hinojosa and Jenny Lopez, they did pass legislation that essentially gave SpaceX the authority to close the beaches during the week and gave the county that authority on weekends to close the beach for testing. Now, is this a case to where there was no communication because, hey, they don't answer to nobody? This is a lesson learned. Moving forward, you best believe that they're going to announce that they're going to have a test. Why? Because it caused chaos. And if the city of Brownsville, based on the email that was sent by city manager Helen Ramirez, if the city of Brownsville received 120,000 phone calls in a span of 2 hours, can't we say the same for Los Fresnos? Can we say the same for San Benito? Possibly Harlingen. I'm not aware of Harlingen residents feeling the thud of it. But this caused chaos, ladies and gentlemen. Imagine if you had a loved one that needed emergency services at that time. They weren't going to get to you. Our leaders need to be more vocal. Our leaders need to demand more transparency, unfortunately. I think at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, what we have is our politicos being quiet because who wants to go up against Elon Musk? When we talk about Elon Musk on the national level, right now, currently, he is in the process of creating his own political party, the American Party. And he has openly stated, and the reason, there are many reasons why we can argue that Elon Musk is on this quest to open up a new political party. One of his reasons is because of the deficit. He was greatly against the BBB, President Trump's big, beautiful bill, because ultimately what that did was it increased our deficit. Elon Musk is all about saving money, according to him. So what did he do? He created his own party and he openly stated and he challenged people and he said, whoever endorses President Trump's big, beautiful bill, best believe I will fund someone to run against you. You don't believe me? Google it. I'll post it later as well. So if our politicians are seeing this, they're probably worried. And who dares go up against the world's richest man who calls Brownsville, the city of Brownsville, his home? What's unfortunate, ladies and gentlemen, is that our politicos, it seems, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe you heard from somebody, our politicos are scared. They're scared to go up against Elon Musk. They're scared to be vocal. Unfortunately, many people have stated that our politicos were bought off. Do I believe that? There was rumors of current county commissioners, current Brownsville leadership. Well, I don't know about Brownsville, but I know current Cameron County leadership when the MOU back in 2013, 2014 was passed. Guess what those people did? Once they got that inside information that SpaceX was going to be a reality, that SpaceX was going to call Boca Chica their home, that they were going to be launching rockets from here, guess what they did? They started buying property in that area well before people got word once this broke out. You don't believe me, do you? These people bought property for peanuts, for pennies on the dollar. The taxes weren't going to be high. Ultimately, now what we see on what highway is that? It's not 48 because 48 is LNG. But that the road from Boca Chica that takes you all the way, is it Highway 4? No, it's not Highway 4. Anyways, passing El Jardín, passing the airport on Boca Chica, going straight to Boca Chica Beach. All that now is lucrative property. We are starting to see gas stations. We're starting to see, heck, Elon Musk is eventually going to build a plaza. You and I can agree that now that is national treasure. So these politicos, and I know of one for sure, a city county commissioner, one for sure, they bought up land in that area for peanuts. For, I want to say, like, don't quote me on this, and maybe I shouldn't go on the record, but it was something crazy, like 15,000, like something unheard of. They sat on it for a while and they flipped it for lots and lots of money. Why? Because they knew that this eventually was going to be Elon Musk's home. And now, because of this, we have Brownsville on the map. We have people from all over the world that know where Brownsville is. So many people, I'll go on the record. And I think the same. Many people, unfortunately, think that our politicos, is that they're bought, that they will not dare say anything publicly about Elon Musk. Again, there is that fear of him retaliating. There is that fear of him putting somebody to run. And when you think about it, ladies and gentlemen, Elon Musk got his own people, his workers, as city commissioners for Starbase and city mayor for Starbase. Can you imagine if he puts his employee to run for county? If he puts an employee to run for the city of Brownsville? Is that a possibility? It's not far-fetched. When we think about a county race, to be competitive, I would dare say, that the judge, our Cameron County judge, is easily going to spend $100,000. I would dare say for our judge, that race is $250,000. I would dare say that to be competitive. Maybe 200,000. Maybe I'm inflating it too much. But no, in today's economy, I'm going to go on the record. Our You need to spend easy 100 to win it 250. Easy. When we talk about our Cameron County commissioners for precinct 1, I would say 100,000. Los Fresnos, San Benito, who's that? David Garza? I would dare say unos 50,000. Why do I say precinct 1's 100,000? Well, because you have the island, South Padre Island. You have SpaceX that still falls under precinct 1. While to us, or I'll speak for myself, me being your humble servant, to me, 100,000 is 100,000. That's a lot of money. You think 100,000 is a lot for Elon Musk? No, that's peanuts. That's what he spends on his girlfriends to get him pregnant. I'm joking. Maybe I'm not. So when we look at the big picture, could Elon Musk put his workers to run for county in Cameron County? I would say yes. Would he get an employee to live in Brownsville to run for city commission? I would dare say yes. Why? He wants to control things. He wants people off his back. Ultimately, that's why he created the American Party, because he wants control. Ultimately, that's what it leads. That's what it boils down to. Many people have been questioning: is Elon Musk's party really going to take over the presidency? When we talk about the Green Party, when we talk about the Libertarian Party, what has that done? Ultimately, that has hurt only the Democrats. Well, depending on which election, and depending on, correct me if I'm wrong, Chad. Ross Perot ran against, and I'm a history major. Please forgive me. Was it Clinton and Bush? Ross Perot ultimately gave the presidency to Clinton. While Ross Perot did have good ideologies back in the early 90s, he did resonate with people. And what did that cause? That caused the Republican Party, that caused the Democrats to lose numbers. But ultimately, I'll dare make the argument that ultimately what Ross Perot did was give President Bill Clinton the presidency. Elon Musk, is he going to be a real threat to American politics that has been a two-party system for as long as we could remember? That's going to be very difficult. But that won't be difficult for here locally, ladies and gentlemen. You think people care about being, well, I may get some flack for this, but at the national level, it's going to be difficult. Here locally, it's a possibility. It really is a possibility. And what is he going to do? Well, he's going to do whatever the hell he wants. Moving forward, I would like our politicos to be more vocal. I would ask transparency in all sense of the word. And unfortunately, that is a word that is used very loosely. Transparency. I'm going to be transparent. I'm going to be transparent. We hear it all the time. But when push comes to shove, what do we see? No transparency at all. On that night, in mid-June, when we heard that explosion, it caused chaos for the city of Brownsville and our surrounding areas, our surrounding communities and cities. The city of Brownsville received 120,000 phone calls in the span of 2 hours. Thank you, Highway 4. I was correct. I thank you so much. 120 phone calls in the span of 2 hours, ladies and gentlemen. Individuals that needed emergency help. Individuals that were possibly dying, that were suffering. Heck, maybe somebody was shot. Maybe somebody was stabbed. They did not receive the proper care. They did not receive the proper attention that they needed at the time. This is very, very important and very serious matter. And I applaud our city manager for being quick and reaching out to SpaceX, because ultimately there is a disconnect between SpaceX, between the city of Brownsville, and between our Cameron County commissioners. Why is that? The only thing that I could think of, ladies and gentlemen, is that people are scared. Nobody wants to be vocal. Nobody wants to say, hey, Elon Musk, let's talk about this. Why is that? Because they're scared that they're going to put somebody to run up against them. That's reality, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, when push comes to shove, our politicos, isn't that what we elected them for? Don't we want elected officials to rise up during a time such as this of uncertainty, of pressing matters, of challenging moments? You would think so, but we don't see it. They're very good to talk. Oh, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to say this, and I'm there. They talk a big game. They've made promises. They. It's like that. It's like that boyfriend and girlfriend that's promising this woman or man the moon and the stars. Baby, I love you, baby. I'm gonna treat you right. I'm gonna take care of you. Please be with me. But what happens after a while? That man or woman is not there when the spouse needs them the most. These are very, very uncertain times, ladies and gentlemen, because now the new wave of space exploration and the launching of rockets is something very new to all of our area. And what happened on that night, on that explosion, caused chaos. Why? Because we didn't know what the hell was going on. Luckily for us, we do have social media, and many people. I was fortunate enough to receive text messages, pictures, and we did post it on the page. That I don't want to say kind of caused us uh, to calm down. Also, another interesting thing, ladies and gentlemen, is when is Starbase going to have their own public safety? You would, and I know this is very new. They are moving as quickly as possible. I'm sure that there are some regulations and guidelines that they have to meet, but they need to get their own fire department. And it's the norm, right? Whenever we hear of, let's say, a big fire breaking out in the city of San Benito, Los Fresnos, Olmito, when neighboring cities are facing adversity, let's just use a fire department. We have, our local fire department travel and try to assist, and we've seen this locally at the national level in Central Texas. Right now, God bless their souls, they have over 200 people that are either died or are missing from the flood in Kerrville. And we have seen how Brownsville, Edinburgh, the fire departments, they have gone to Kerrville. We have Herm's Barbecue here locally from Los Fresnos and Brownsville, who did travel and drop off supplies. And we salute you, Mr. Avila and family, who is helping. But if this didn't spark a under their butt to get things going, it should. It should, because this happened unexpectedly. Is this something to where this is going to be the norm, or these type of explosions? And look, if you're driving from Brownsville to South Padre Island on Highway 48, what's there? The LNG plant. Now, the Brownsville Fire Department were told to stand back because they were not sure if there was going to be a second explosion. So I want you to think of something. And again, my friend that invited me for breakfast shortly after the blast, the explosion, he did say, Frankie, haven't you ever thought of what would happen if a rocket just so happened to land where LNG is? I also had a community member that reached out to me, and she wanted me to. She has family in Port Isabel, and she wanted me to look into. And I do want to talk to I want to talk to an environmentalist group, people who are against Elon Musk and SpaceX. I want to bring them on the show um, to talk more about this, and I will. I'm trying to reach out to a few of them. Uh, this concerned citizen said, "Frankie, I have my mother's house is in Port Isabel. I do not feel safe with the rocket launches, with the explosion, and with LNG being so close. What guarantees do we have that whenever there's these explosions, these rocket launches, and we feel it here in South Padre Island, we feel it in Brownsville, Texas, where our houses shake. What happens to the LNG plants? Are they able to sustain the rigors, the explosions of the rocket launches? God forbid for one of the pipes to, I don't know, disconnect and there's a fumes. Now, I understand and that LNG has done their due diligence and has safety protocols and procedures and I hope that they would have gone through these different scenarios. You would think, right? But the reality, ladies and gentlemen, the reality is that at the end of the day, it's all about money. The president of Brownsville South Padre Realtors rezoned large areas of District 2 from C6 and residential to industrial. He's an educated person. His wife is a doctor, but money talks and BS walks. At the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, it's all about money. Many people have questioned and said, why did the Cameron County commissioners allow for LNG to come right next to the rocket launches? I understand that our commissioners are worried about economic development and um, they want to spark, they want an economic boom. You know, they want money to be invested here in a local area. Our restaurants will benefit, our hotels will benefit, South Padre will benefit, Brownsville will benefit in some way. We understand that, but are we ruining our beaches? Are we ruining our Mother Earth? But that's a question that I want you to think of, ladies and gentlemen. What would have happened? What would have happened if the rocket, this explosion, because it's in close proximity to LNG. What would have happened if a rocket would have fallen on LNG? If a mecha? Because whenever and look, I'm not well versed in LNG. Me and my warped mind, I think that one of those plants is kind of like a mecha. That there's just oxygen, that there's just gas just roaming around. And again, that's just me. All you need is a cerillo. All you need is a mecha to light it all up. Again, could that happen? I would hope not. But with the close proximity that the LNG plant is to SpaceX and that explosion, could that have been worse? Could they? Could we have seen a catastrophe of epic proportions? Fortunately, we didn't. Rosa says, what about the new building that just passed for SpaceX to build? Can you imagine if something happens and LNG and 7 miles away? Goodbye to the surrounding areas, Brownsville, PI, and South Padre. Yep. Yep. And that is my concern, or that is the community's concern. It's not just mine, it's the community's concerned about this. I did have somebody reach out to me shortly after the explosion. She said, Frankie, can you please look into this? I'm worried about my mother. She lives in Port Isabel. I'm worried about the LNG plant. Unfortunately, our area has been taken over by industry, big bucks. That's the reality of it. There's no other way to say it. So moving forward, will there be more communication? Look, for any relationship, maybe I shouldn't say this, but for any relationship to last, there has to be good communication. When we think about our spouse, when we think about our girlfriend, our wives, our Sanchez, when we think about them, there needs to be good communication. Because if there is no communication, something's going to happen. I'm not going to be aware of something. I might interpret things the wrong way. You and I can agree that communication in a relationship is essential, is vital for that relationship to last. It's shocking whenever we have an entity such as SpaceX who has had its fair share of explosions, not communicate with city leadership, with county leadership, and said, hey, we're going to do this late at night. If something were to happen, we have things under control. Be on standby just in case. We got nothing. Nothing. And us pobres in Brownsville were freaking out. Oh my goodness. Iran is attacking us. The SpaceX explosion, ladies and gentlemen, caused chaos for the city of Brownsville. 120,000 calls were received by Brownsville dispatchers. That's 60,000 in 1 hour. Can you imagine if your loved one needed to be transported to the hospital? Can you imagine if somebody was shot, if somebody was stabbed, if somebody was dying? They weren't going to get the attention. They weren't going to get the proper medical help that they needed at that time. Who's to blame? It's easy for us to blame SpaceX. I blame our leaders. I blame our city and county elected officials. Why? Because they need to get a grip on that mother. Hey, aquí mis cacahuetes truenan, Elon. But what do we see? Oh, praise Elon. Oh, sí, Elon. Lo que tú quieres, Elon. What do you want? You want the beach? Llévatelo. You want to restrict the community from traveling? Do restrict them. Lo que tú quieras. Say it ain't so, Tucker. That our politicos are just worried about the almighty money and to stay in power. At the end of the day, that's what we're facing. We have people in elected positions that don't want to say anything because they're scared of Elon Musk. Say it ain't so. How do you feel, Brownsville and surrounding cities of the Rio Grande Valley, on that night in mid-June when there was a SpaceX explosion that caused mass chaos and hysteria for our local area? What do you have to say about that? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. Um, I'm gonna continue staying on YouTube for a while. I'm gonna come back on Facebook on late July, early August. Um, I thank you so much for taking this journey with me. It's not easy. Many people have said, "How do you find material to talk?" I'm like, well, these politicos give us a whole lot of material. And again, it's never a dull day in the city of Brownsville. We are working on stories, ladies and gentlemen. Don't best believe that we are staying busy during this summer. I'm gonna wait until late July, early August, because right now everybody's on campaign. Everybody's on in vacation mode. It's only you, the few people that are tuning in, that are engaged, that are on, but the masses, they don't want to talk about politics. And I understand, everybody needs a break from the craziness, from this rat race that we live. So I do have some banger stories, but I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait until late July, early August, when everybody's back into the back to reality. School starts August the 11th, so I'll probably be breaking a story on a school board member right before school starts. You won't want to miss it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time and your attention. I'm humbled by the attention that Good Morning Brownsville has received. Best believe it doesn't matter if there's one or two people or the thousands that we've been receiving as of late. I'm always going to give you my very best. I'm going to come before you with nothing but facts and receipts because you deserve to know the truth. Unfortunately, our page is at risk of being taken down. Um, but we will not be silenced, ladies and gentlemen. For far too long, individuals have taken advantage of our elected seat, whether that be at the county, at the city, and at the school board. We need people to call them out. There are repercussions, Brownsville. I've already been threatened several times with my life. But to me, that's just giving me more animo, more ammunition to keep on marching on to the beat of my own drum. You want to support me? You want to help me? I don't ask for much. All I ask for is for you to subscribe to our platforms, especially here on YouTube. And if you ever see me, if you ever see me on the street, if you ever see me in the street, nigga, you know me. If you ever see me in the street, stop by, say hi, offer me a taco de frijol con queso. That's all I ask for. I'm easy to please, Brownsville. I don't ask for much. I just ask for something very, very basic. A taco de frijol con queso, and for you to subscribe to our social media platforms, especially YouTube. We could be found under Frank Olivo TV. Ladies and gentlemen, my time is up. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you have a great, great Friday. I'm doing my best. I'm on vacation, but I'm still here before you. Make sure you tune in on Monday morning, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you have a great day. My name is Frank Olivo, and this is Good Morning Brownsville. Peace! And me flex. Ugh. You have a great day, great weekend. See you Monday. Don't be late.